responsible environment that spells care.
Ready when you are.
All right, very good. Good morning, this is Jim Miller, and I am on the board of directors for CARE for the Cape Islands, creating a responsible environment. And today we're filming a new segment for Cooking with Care with Matt Tropeano, owner, operator, and chef of Spoon and Seed Restaurant in Hyannis, Massachusetts. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning.
So we are going to ask you a little bit about some of the food that you've got displayed here for the camera. But really this is about, I think, as we move forward here, the efforts that you're making as a restaurateur and as a business owner here on the Cape about making sustainable decisions. And that could include growing your own vegetables. That could include, supporting local farmers and fishermen. And ultimately, I think what we'd like to hear about is your ongoing efforts in terms of the industry itself and some decisions that you've made recently about a message that you'd like to get out that I think is very important as a refugee from the kitchen for many years ago. So Matt, take it away.
Yeah, so my name is Matthew Tropeano. Opened Spoon and Seed in 2015, and I've been living on Cape Cod since 2013. And I guess that's where it started as far as breakfast and lunch for me. When I moved here, I always had the intention of being an entrepreneur. I've always been a chef, and the one thing I learned very quickly at living in Cape Cod is if you're going to be part of the local community, breakfast and lunch seemed like where it was at year round. So I was working at another restaurant in those years, and for breakfast and lunch we were still pretty busy in February, so kind of planted the seed for me to think that direction for when the time was ready to open up my own place. So in 2015, this building was vacant. I liked two things about it. One was the wood beams were amazing, and two, there was equipment in the kitchen, so it was pretty.
Important.
Yeah, it was a pretty for a chef. I'm like, oh, this turns on. I think I could make something.
Yeah, exactly.
So we opened on a very strict budget. I think at that time, I think I had like $12,000 to my name, and it went into this business. The creativity came with necessity. So we didn't have enough tables, but my father actually built these tables with reclaimed wood flooring. So that was kind of like the kind of taking what you have and making the best of it, polishing it up. That's how we started, and it's how we kind of continue. It's kind of what we always go back to as we're progressing. I think of the place as more of as the French say, like an atelier. It's been a work in progress. The first 5 years we were open was, I was trying to do the best versions of the classic breakfast and lunch dishes. So we had an eggs and hash, where we made the hash completely from scratch and used proper technique, like we still do. And it was a very different time. I always say the first 5 years we opened before 2020 might as well be 25 years ago. The neighborhood has changed, people's habits have changed, and I would say in the last 4 years things have really. I remember sitting down in an empty dining room during the early days of the pandemic and saying to myself, well, now as a chef, I can really do what I think is going to work. And it's kind of a tough thing because before then you were always thinking about the customer. I think as a hospitality person, and you want to please every customer in every way, and we still want to do that, but because things were so stripped down and everything was limited, staff and everything, I said we're just going to do what we do best and really hone it and sharpen it And it's been, since then, it's been like a complete kind of life-changing experience. The eggs and hash dish that we do morphed into our hash smash, which is on the table here. And this really tells the story of what we're all about here. We've got homemade sourdough bread that we make in-house. So the sourdough bread it's the oldest recipe of bread that you can make. That's on the base of the smash. And then we've got our homemade corned beef hash, gets grilled, and then we smash everything together with a spatula, hence the name. 2 eggs from down the street, Harvest Moon Farms. And then using the technique that I learned many, many years ago, making a very good, simple, classic hollandaise. Nothing from a can, nothing from a bottle or anything like that. Just all natural ingredients put together. And people love it. This is our go-to dish. We sell, this is like 20% of our business.
I'm a happy customer as part of that 20%.
So yeah,
it's
you
fabulous.
have the dish. So it's been very, again, all along, we've been, the dishes have always been kind of inspired in that way. We've always tried our best to use local farms, which we still do, and we found it, when we opened, we thought it was important. And then during the pandemic, we were like, wow, this is why it's important, because when the chain of goods is and the supplies are messed up, the local produce and the local eggs were the things that we could count on. And those relationships with those farmers and those producers and those people, they're coming through the door, we're talking, and we're basing our menu on that. Telling people, please get more chickens, I will buy your eggs. As many eggs as you can produce, we will buy them all. And it's very satisfying to have the farmer drop off in the back, and I cut him a check right there, and it's like, all right, good, we're good here. And then it pays off the customers. Our customers can't say enough. It's like a discovery of, I come here and I can really taste everything, and you can tell, and it's hard for me to take it all in, because it's something that I've aimed for my whole career, to learn techniques, to work with the best, and I enjoy it and I love it. And then to see that kind of payoff and kind of have people tell me how it inspires their day and kind of changes their kind of aims too, is pretty cool.
Well, as a customer here, I like to think of myself as a guest when I go to restaurants. So I'll use that term. As a guest here, having breakfast or having lunch, I never felt rushed, and I think that that's important. This is not a big operation, but there was never any sense of, okay, let's move this on. That was not ever the case, and that's always been, important for me when I've eaten here, is that I knew I could settle down. There's Wi-Fi here. If I do come in the middle of the day and get a chance to do some work, I can spread out and do that. And I bring that up for a couple of reasons. One is that, many of you may know that I come out of a hospitality education background, and also, having spent a fair amount of time in the kitchen as well. There's a combination that I always was excited about. Matt and I talked about it this morning, and I'd like to have him talk a little bit about the idea of sustainability in terms of not so much just the techniques. And when I hear that term, I love that, because to many operations, that's really the secret to their success, is having the appropriate techniques take place in the back of the house and in the front of the house. But you mentioned something this morning, and I'd like to ask you about it, and that is your growing emphasis and trying to communicate the importance of what's happened. I think you brought up what your life has been like since 2000 and 2020.
Right.
So talk a little bit about that, because I'm fascinated with that concept.
Yeah, so I started cooking in, I would say, 1997. And before that, I was a busboy looking at the cooks, and I said, I want to do that. And then a book came out while I was doing that called Kitchen Confidential.
Anthony Bourdain.
Anthony Bourdain, which I read in one sitting at Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
I've bought many copies since then, but and I was fascinated and also kind of relieved. I was like, wow, I can relate to this. And then I also saw like, oh, this is what you can do. And back then it was interesting because to me, he seemed very humble, saying like, this is where I made mistakes, and this is what I should have done, and this is where I should have worked. And it was almost like a quick mentorship in that way. And then when I was telling you about kind of the essay I'm working on from 2000 to 2020, the toxicity of the restaurant business, and kind of how it shadowed my success. And we all kind of learned the restaurant business is a lot of fight or flight. So it's you're feeding a lot of people at the same time, and every person is an individual, and we try to please them. And even though we're not doctors and things like that, I've had nurses and doctors tell me like, hey, we don't work like this in a hospital. And I said, that's interesting. I can't believe it. But I think that early in my career, when we talked, you said that it's really important to learn like managerial skills and the administration part. But when I was 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, I was all about what is on the plate and how did they get it on there. I was looking at Thomas Keller, Daniel Boulud, and then as time went on, there was like modern cuisine and really ultra focused on what is on that plate. And I spent a lot of time worrying about that and working on that and putting pressure on myself and working with the same like-minded people who seemed like everything in their life was chaos, except they could put down the sexiest plate with the nicest foam and a nice, and as I got older and as time went by, I always said, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'll have these systems in place by then. And when it came to opening up the restaurant here, we were successful off the bat because the food was delicious. And since that day, I would say I have been trying to catch up to knowing the basics. What is a proper inventory? Managing people, understanding people, teaching and learning, and really figuring out how each person can learn. Like each person's individual and each person learns differently. And this time in my career, I'm kind of trying to, the younger cooks who are coming through the kitchen, I kind of see the same thing where they're just focused on that flash, and it's like, no, like you want to make a nice dish and you want to have a nice sauce, but do you even know what's in your mise en place for tomorrow? Do you know what's in the walk-in? I was successful at an early age because I knew what was in the walk-in, and I knew how to organize and I knew what I needed. But to write those things down, to pass that on to another cook, to delegate, and all those things are so important. And it really comes down to keeping things simple and stacking all those simple things up so you can create. It's certainly, when you're a chef, you're worried about just a part of the restaurant, which when I was just a chef, I thought that was the universe in the world. And the last couple years especially, I've been in the dining room, and now you'll hear from me talking about steps of service. The young kids who come in here, you can't just throw them in and have them do service, because that's chaos. So if you can give them 7 steps of service, from greeting the customer to saying farewell, they can work within that box and then they can thrive. And then all you're doing is you're building up confidence of the people that work for you. And then if you got good food and you got good service,
not a bad combination.
Yeah,
boy, that's really the truth.
And this is all an education for me too. I love it. I feel enriched every day. And it's exciting to see, like, sometimes I have these great you know, I tell people I have 12 concepts for 12 different places, a fast casual, a fine dining, a Michelin star, but like, I do tell myself at the end of the day, I'm happy doing this, kind of being the steward of Spoon and Seed and just maintaining and creating nice experiences, and then turning the lights on and off at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So
You know, you should feel very accomplished. I mean, it really is a pleasure to come in, and that's, you know, you've been very open. I know that I appreciate hearing all of this. You're going to be making a mistake if you haven't been here yet. So again, thank you very much, Matt Tropeano, Chef Matt Tropeano,
thank you.
and thank you very much. Have a great day.
Creating a responsible environment that spells care.